video is going to be a rough one, and as trigger warning to anyone watching, we are going to be discussing themes of sexual violence, and hoping that YouTube doesn't take it down. So let's just get into whatever this is going to be. Welcome back to the YouTube channel that just won't die. I haven't posted on this in over a year, and I hadn't really intended to come back, at least not this soon, but this is something that really needs to be discussed, and I felt like this was the most efficient way to do it. For those of you who've been following me on other social media platforms, you'll know that I recently co-founded a social media page, and we are just a social media page. We have not yet filed for nonprofit status, so for legal disclaimer, we are just a social media page. And we are called PLEA, which stands for Protecting Life Through Ethical Accountability, and the effort is really in the name. Our goal is to simply hold accountable members of the pro-life movement, particularly those in leadership, to account for less than ethical things that they may say or do, or have said and done. And while I firmly believe that the pro-life movement is in desperate need of these measures of accountability, our effort originally started with the situation involving Abby Johnson. And for those who haven't been following along, I'm going to do my best to kind of sum it up and compact it a little bit, to the best of my ability. So in November of last year, 2021, Abby Johnson made a post to her very public Facebook that has thousands upon thousands of followers, accusing a fellow pro-life activist and rape survivor of lying about her story. Jennifer Christie of Love Louder was publicly accused of fabricating her story of brutal rape from which she conceived a son. This would have been a shocking revelation on Abby's part, had it been rooted in any form of fact or reality. In all of Abby's rather lengthy Facebook post, she failed to produce a single shred of evidence to back up her accusations, and when pressed for proof by multiple people, myself included, she dismissed us and even outright refused to produce this information, even going as far to use the supposed evidence that she had in a threatening manner against Jen. Now, you would think that accusations as baseless as these would simply be dismissed. I mean, she has no proof to back up what she's saying. But while that might be the logical conclusion one would come to, obviously that isn't what happened. Apparently, whenever you have as much power and influence as Abby Johnson does, you can just go around throwing out baseless accusations without question and without being held to account for it. Abby's latest escapade landed her on a popular Turning Point USA podcast where the host, Alex Clark, and Abby engaged in 13 minutes of gossip and slander. I'm going to go over what was said in that 13-minute segment, give you the facts on the situation, and finally put all of these slanderous lies about Jen and her family to rest.
You called out this woman, Jennifer Christie of Love Louder. That's another pro-life nonprofit, right?
Called out is an interesting choice of words. Abby didn't call out anything. A call out requires receipts, evidence, proof. Abby accused a rape victim of lying about her rape story with no evidence or proof. That's what happened here, Alex.
Your organization, Pro Love Ministries, was affiliated with her. And
key word here being was. Abby was not affiliated with Jen or her organization for about a month whenever she decided to fly off the handle.
Jennifer had maintained this story about surviving a brutal rape. She said that she became pregnant. But eventually, you felt like the story didn't add up because dates didn't ultimately align with her claims. You posted on Facebook that there was no evidence of police reports. Jennifer refused to back her story with police and medical reports after it began to change. And even the ultrasound that she showed as part of her story didn't add up.
She had given us an ultrasound that was, the dates were tampered with.
What?
And then admitted the dates were tampered with.
So let's break down these accusations one by one. First, the dates. Abby has been very focused on the exact date that Jen's attack took place, which Jen initially got wrong whenever she started to share her story. She knew it happened sometime in January, but happened to get the exact day in January wrong. She has since been able to correct herself using her own medical records to find the exact day that her attack happened. Again, these can be backed up using Jennifer's own medical records. Secondly, Jen never refused to back up her story with evidence. She simply refused to make that evidence available for public consumption or give it directly to Abby, which is perfectly fine and respectable, and Abby seems to forget that no one owes her anything, particularly not sealed police reports or private medical records. Jen provided sufficient evidence to the organization who was originally contacted about Jen's story possibly being fabricated, which was her Speakers Bureau. She reached out to them and had open communication about what they needed in order for them to proceed with their business relationship with her, which she was happy to provide, and did. Lastly, the ultrasound. This is an accusation Abby continues to throw around despite multiple people having tried to correct her. Jen never once claimed that the dates on her ultrasound had been tampered with. Abby can't back up this accusation because it never happened. Jen wouldn't admit to something that wasn't true. One of the ultrasounds that Jen shared had a handwritten date in one side of the corner that did not match up with the printed date on the ultrasound. But that doesn't change the fact that the printed date on the ultrasound remained the same and remained consistent with Jen's story. Having numbers handwritten in pen or marker in the corner of an ultrasound does not negate the printed date on the ultrasound from the hospital which Jen received that ultrasound.
Years, her and her husband raised thousands of dollars to allegedly pay for surgeries that were necessary because of her rape, but she wouldn't even provide evidence that those surgeries ever even happened. So,
Alex, the surgeries that Jen had can be backed up using her medical records, which she has provided. All of it lines up, all of it's been verified by doctors. Jen had multiple surgeries after her attack.
So you, being the confident voice that you are, called her out on Facebook.
Again, not a call out. We have zero evidence to support any of the accusations that Abby has levied at Jen and her family. And as you stated earlier, Alex, it's been months, so why don't we have it? I guess Abby is just such a confident voice that she doesn't have to actually back up any of these accusations. I mean, why would she whenever you and Turning Point USA just hand her your platform to spread her lies free of confrontation?
I thought when I first heard about this, I thought this story reminded me kind of Jussie Smollett.
Did you just compare a survivor's story of rape to a fake hate crime?
Jussie Smollett, if you remember, Don Jr. was the first to say, okay, guys, something is not adding up here.
Yeah, you did. That's really embarrassing.
Yeah, it's really a sad story, actually. And it's been really tragic.
Is it, Abby? Is it sad and tragic that you lied about a rape survivor and claimed that her story of brutal and horrific rape was all fabricated for money? Is it sad, Abby? Is it?
The only reason I actually came out about it was because her organization, Love Louder, was an affiliate partner of my organization, Pro Love Ministries, and we had taken her on as an affiliate partner. And people were donating to her because I had endorsed her organization.
Again, key word here being was. That affiliation was dead and buried by the time Abby made her Facebook post. This was in no way motivated by her affiliation with Jen's organization, which, by the way, at the time was in the process of being shuttered. There was no organization for Abby to be associated with, and no organization for people to donate money to.
Originally got a phone call from a woman who knew her, that was a pastor's wife, who had known her, who was on the board of a pregnancy center back in her previous hometown where she had lived. And she came forward and said, look, I don't know if you guys have vetted Jennifer's story, but she's a well-known fabricator, teller of tales. That's why she moved from the town that she was in. And somebody needs to vet her story because her story is not true. And we all know it's not true. This is why she moved. Somebody needs to figure this.
This was a woman who knew Jen at 19 years old, as in decades ago. It also wasn't Jen's hometown. But don't worry, Abby. I know how hard it must be to keep all of these lies straight, so I'm here to help you out. Actually, Jen and Jeff left that town after Jeff got out of the military, which is incredibly common. Military town, military people, you stop being military people, you leave military town because you can. And they also ended up leaving that church specifically because of this pastor's wife and her behavior. Also, this woman knew Jen at 19, not Jen at the time that she was raped. So how would this woman have insider information like it not being true or Jen having fabricated that story? You would think a pro-life activist would better understand the process of checking your sources.
And I said, so, not that anybody's going to ask for it, but you need to just have it available just in case. You'd have this police report, you'd have your medical records and all this. And she said, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that.
Abby wanted Jen to make her medical records and police report public, and Jen said no. Her police report is sealed by a judge for safety reasons, and all anybody needs to know in regards to that is that a judge decided that info being public was a safety concern. End of story, period, the end, bye-bye. And medical records are very private and personal. Nobody should be expected to offer up their personal medical records for public consumption simply because somebody wants to see them.
She ended up saying that if she had to provide any records to anybody, that she was pulling out of the book deal.
Jen did not pull out of her book deal. Focus on the Family canceled their contract with her after deciding not to accept documentation Jen had already provided to them of her own volition. Jen was actually the one to reach out to Focus on the Family after already settling this issue with her Speakers Bureau.
That the rape had taken place on January 11th, 2014, in Wilmington, North Carolina. We looked at the dates. We looked at the weather. It was 72 degrees on January 11th.
Oh my gosh.
It had not snowed that day. The only day that it had snowed was on January 28th. And so we went to her with that information. She said, well, I must have gotten the date wrong. It must have been January 28th.
I don't know anyone that survives a traumatic. I'm just telling you, I don't know. And anyone who goes through a traumatic attack like that, whether that's rape or anything, like, you know the day that happened, like the smells in the air, what things looked like the noises around you, right? I mean, isn't that fair to say?
Wow, Alex. Tell me you've never experienced real trauma without telling me you've never experienced real trauma. Google is free, and any mental health professional that is well-versed in dealing with trauma survivors will tell you that knowing exact dates is not common. Not being able to remember details like that about your trauma is actually incredibly common for trauma survivors. This is something that any medical professional who deals with these situations will tell you. Wait, isn't Abby a licensed therapist? Oh, wait, that's right. She isn't. So, the woman who lied about her credentials and being a mental health professional is now supporting and perpetuating false information about mental health and trauma. Wow, I'm so shocked.
Abby, do you know the woman who faked being a 9/11 survivor, Tanya Head? Have you ever heard that story? It's called The Woman Who Wasn't There. Okay, there's a woman who made up this whole thing for years and years and years. She was the president of the 9/11 Survivors, Association Club or something like that.
Alex, if you're going to make accusations like this and say that a rape survivor is basically making a big fake hoax about her rape story, you should probably make sure that you're actually getting the entire story and not an incredibly biased one side of it. Wow, you and Abby are two peas in the pod with these baseless accusations. Yikes.
In her in her story, she said that during the attack, she had multiple fingers broken. She had multiple ribs broken. She said she had a subdural hematoma in her brain. She said that the guy had broken a glass bottle up her rectum.
Wow, it's like Abby is working overtime in this interview to show exactly how uneducated she is on trauma. Sharing personal details about an attack that's not your own, even if it is public information, not okay. Sharing graphic details about a sexual assault with absolutely no warning to the audience watching, super not okay.
After having a bottle broken up your rectum, a subdural hematoma in your brain, multiple fingers broken, multiple ribs broken, how are you using your hands interpreting ASL 2 weeks after multiple fingers were broken?
Abby, I know that you are incredibly uneducated about trauma. I mean, that's very, very evident. But trauma survivors will overwhelmingly go back to regular life activities as part of coping with their trauma. It's often part of the mental healing process. Also, people who use sign language as their only form of communication still use sign language after trauma. It's the way that they communicate.
Anything that you're like, I feel like the questions you're asking are super fair. It sounds like you've done extreme thorough research into this and you're asking fair questions. So I don't understand why
they won't answer the questions.
I mean, this isn't rocket science, and these questions have been answered. Some of which in the comment section of the Facebook post that you made about this situation, which of course you then deleted from said comment section and blocked the people who were giving you the answers that you were supposedly looking for. Interesting how you leave that part out.
Oh, I became a villain because I was simply asking questions.
Why?
Right?
You weren't asking questions, Abby. There are dozens of people who can confirm they tried to give you this information and you blocked them and deleted their comments. You're not asking questions if you don't actually want the answers.
People trying to cancel you for this.
Well, they just want, because you can't question a rape survivor.
No, Abby. We're saying that you can't accuse a rape survivor of lying without any proof. That's a pretty standard expectation. If you're going to accuse somebody of wrongdoing, you have to back up that claim. Wait. That sounds familiar. Where have I heard that before?
Because this happens, right? I mean, if you're a public figure, if you're a public speaker, if you're making these claims, you need to have something to back up your story, right?
Maybe take your own advice?
Because the bottom line is that women do lie about being raped. We know that. And those women should be held accountable.
So should people who lie about rape victims also be held accountable? What about people who lie about being licensed therapists whenever they're not? See, the only person in this situation who is a proven liar is you, Abby.
And in the meantime, this woman has raised close to $100,000 from the pro-life movement on surgeries that never existed.
These surgeries?
So where's the money going? That's what I want to know.
Where's the money? I mean, that's the thing.
Probably with the women who the money was raised for, because the financials have been gone over and pretty much all the money is accounted for. Also, there haven't been any complaints from women who were helped through Jen or her organization for not receiving the help that they were told they were going to. Abby has claimed on multiple occasions that there is an investigation underway into Jen and Love Louder's financials. But all of these months later, we still have absolutely no proof, nothing that Abby can present to the public to prove that this investigation is even happening.
We looked up her criminal record. We did a background check on her. She has 16 criminal charges on her record.
No way.
Her husband has 30 criminal charges.
Holy crap. This could be like a massive con deal.
You mean the criminal record of not paying taxes or tickets on time? Oh, and of course there was the expired registration. Yeah, these are some master criminals.
And the saddest thing, Alex, is that this group of people that's like trying to cancel me now, which whatever, they can do what they want. This group of people, they are actually all assault survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman, Jennifer, has lured them in. And because she's faking this or whatever, you know, she's got all this trauma or whatever, she has lured them in, and she is now exploiting their real trauma.
Right.
And that's the saddest thing to me. That's what makes me the most angry about it, is that she's using them.
We don't need nor want your fake sympathy, Abby. We weren't lured in by anything. I didn't even know who Jen was before all of this. And whenever I heard about this situation, I didn't even know that you were the big name pro-lifer who was her accuser. I was still able to see the facts for what they were. You accused a rape survivor of lying about her brutal and horrific rape with absolutely no proof and no evidence. You're angry that we're being exploited? We're angry that you have weaponized your pro-life platform to harm other people. Here's the thing that you simply do not understand, Abby. Even if you could, right now, prove everything that you've said about Jen, every accusation that you've thrown at her, you would still be wrong. Even if you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that everything that you have said is true, which, to clarify for everybody watching, it's physically impossible for Abby to do this because Jen has already proven these accusations to be false. How you handled this situation and continue to handle this situation, this interview being a perfect example, was so incredibly wrong and disgusting. Not only did you put Jen's mental health at risk, knowing full well and having intimate details of the mental health struggles that she had, not only did you put Jen's family at risk, you alienated trauma survivors and exposed them to so many trauma triggers. You, Abby Johnson, have made the pro-life movement feel unsafe for so many people, survivors in particular, because of your actions. So save your fake pity sessions and your faux concern. You have made it abundantly clear to us that you do not care.
Jennifer's story aside, why do you think there are some people in the pro-life movement that just do not like you?
Oh, Alex, I can answer that. It's really quite simple. Abby's a bully. She's arrogant and egotistical. She treats people like trash. She's been caught being openly racist and homophobic, completely unprovoked. She puts her political ideology ahead of pro-life activism and overall just makes the movement look really bad, bigoted, and drives people away. Like I said, simple. And you can follow Plea if you want more information about the many, many, many things that are problematic about Abby Johnson. This idea that only left-leaning progressive pro-lifers dislike her and they only dislike her because she's conservative is just another lie on her ever-growing pile of lies. Our team at Plea is incredibly diverse. The movement that has been backing Jen since the beginning of this is also incredibly diverse. We're not coming after her because she's conservative. We're coming after her because she has weaponized her platform, the platform that was given to her by the pro-life movement, to actively harm other people. And Jen is just the latest in a long string of people that Abby has harmed. This interview was absolutely abhorrent and disgusting. After receiving immense backlash, Turning Point USA invited Jen to come on and tell her side of the story. Too little and way too late. You want to be nonpartisan after your podcast host spent 13 minutes slandering an assault victim and claiming that she was lying about her rape with no evidence whatsoever? Sorry guys, but you're not going to damage control your way out of your involvement in a smear campaign against an assault victim. Maybe stop allowing your employees to be so reckless with your platform. Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and Alex Clark owe Jen and her family the most sincerest of apologies for the harm they have caused in continuing to platform a liar and an abuser. and I will make hundreds of videos on this subject if that's what it takes to get some justice from them. And be sure you're following Plea. We are at Plea Justice on all social media platforms, and we're going to be doing our best to keep everybody up to date on this situation. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, share this video with as many people as you can so that we can get some justice for Jen, but also prevent this from happening to a survivor in the future.